Hey guys, it is Letter Magic here, and yes, I do sound a little bit different. Had to readjust everything. I had to rebuy some software because of licensing issues with Adobe. When I had to rebuild my computer because the motherboard failed, so that's all becoming extremely expensive. But yeah, I had to change how my mixer worked, and I'm surprised I even sound like the same person at this point. But anyways, time for some more Commander Legends spoilers. I think there's like 70 or 80 to go, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's what I've been hearing, so this is not the last day of it, but we're approaching it. So first up, let's start with Scholar of the Ages. It's a 7-cost 3/3 human wizard, and when it enters the battlefield, return up to 2 target instant or sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. I still think 7's a little high with that, but boy, can you do some damage casting something again. Next up, we got Emoti, Celebrant of Bounty, and Giver of Epic High Fives. So it's a 5-cost legendary creature, Naga Druid. It's a 3/1 with Cascade. So, 5 on Cascade is pretty decent. You get some good power going. I still, just despise Cascade, but whatever. And then spells you cast with converted mana cost 6 or greater have Cascade. Now we've got a problem. How many spells really have 6 or greater? I get it, it's Commander, but there's some power cards in the 4 to 5 range, just saying. But yeah, if you start just getting a 2-for-1 special on all your big spells, that's power. So this is a very first printing, and it doesn't have partners, so that's a little unusual. Next up, Reshape the Earth. It's another one of these mythic 9-cost triple-colored thingies, so it's sorcery. And search your library for up to 10 land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So 10 instances of landfall triggers, or 10 more mana to use next turn. Considering you just paid 9 for the spell somehow, I'm going to say landfall triggers is what you want to do with this, but either way is fine. Even if you didn't need the damn lands, well then, cast something actually good for 9, like Ingaruk's Wake, of course not a green spell. But if you just want to get the majority of the lands out of your deck and just draw better cards from now on, I could, like I said, think of better things to do for 9 mana. But, whatever. Next up, now this is unique here. We've got Generous Gift, and it was printed for the first time in Modern Horizons. Now remember, this is basically Commander Horizons. So they're reprinting a card that they made up specifically for, well, let's be honest, Commander, because Modern Horizons is really just a Commander set. Although it did break Modern pretty good. Also, I think this is a parody of an unset card or the other way around too, so a lot going on here, but the art's funny regardless. So it's a 3-cost instant, destroy target permanent, and its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. So you can, I don't know if save would be the right word, but you can blow up one of your creatures as they're being targeted by something else and then get a 3/3 out of it. Otherwise, Banishing Light or whatever is just like a better white removal, but you can do interesting things with this. I'm not sure exactly what, but it's an interesting card. Next up, Rayhan, or probably Rayhan, I don't know, Rayovac, could be anything. Last of the Abzan, which, that's news to me. This card actually came out in 2016, or at least in the set called 2016. And I didn't really follow the lore for that set too much because I was too busy being distracted by $800 mana bases and how awful the Jeskai clan was. But hey, if the Abzan got wiped out, we no longer have even numbers. I'm sure they would kind of BS it if we ever go back, but I don't think anybody's too keen on revisiting that plane. In fact, actually, I think it was voted really low when they actually took an informal vote on Twitter. Literally nobody wants to revisit Tarkir. Also, I gotta say, I dispute this card a little bit because of, the bottom left, which would seem to indicate that he's not the last of the Abzan. Perhaps you should turn around for a moment, Rayhan. But anyway, it's a 3-cost 0/0, so just trains rolling into Value Town there. But when he enters the battlefield, he gets 3/1/1 counters on him, and then whenever a creature you control dies or is put into the command zone, if it had 1 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you may put that many +1/+1 counters on target creature, and then partners. So basically the Ozolith, and the only reason that this is like a $12 card is because this was the Ozolith before the Ozolith. Now, would I play both of them? Absolutely. Especially in a Proliferate deck. This is fantastic. It's just on death, move the counter somewhere else if you have a valid target. Real simple. You might think, oh, well, that's not that interesting as far as commanders go. Well, first of all, partner, and then secondly, actually it is. So, yeah, not a bad card. Definitely in need of a reprint, so that's good. Next up, Kodama's Reach. We got a picture of Kodama trying to scratch that itch on his back and not quite getting there. But yeah, it's a 3-cost sorcery, Arcane. Oh boy, thanks Tarmogoyf. And search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Reveal those cards, put one onto the battlefield, tapped in the other into your hand. So in other words, cultivate for less. Definitely one of the better landfall cards out there. Oh, and it is a reprint, by the way. Next up, Carametra, God of Harvests. So about a $3 reprint from Born of the Gods there. Oh boy, mythic slot, fantastic. At least we get the funny looking foiling, which if you hadn't heard, allegedly doesn't curl as much in a really hilariously roundabout indirect statement made by one of the staff members. I think he said something like durability, and everybody's like, okay, so it doesn't curl, got it. They can't openly admit that cards curl, or they would be liable for, like, it's a whole thing. So anyway, this is a 5 cost, 6/7 indestructible, and then, 7 devotion turns into a creature. And then otherwise, whenever you cast a creature spell, you may search your library for a forest or plains card, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. This is one of the best landfall enablers in the game, by far. You mix this with Beastmaster, whatever his name was, and then the Great Henge or something like it, and you could just go. And then we're back with Reclamation Sage, or as I like to call it, Sabio da Reivindicaciao. Well, I thought it might be Spanish before I started reading it. Yeah, most of the rest of these are in a foreign language, which this is an awfully high ratio of foreign language cards. If you haven't heard my theory on it, it's because they're trying to be all diverse and woke after they got called out for being hypocrites and not hiring anybody who doesn't look like somebody from Seattle. So I guess their idea was they're going to promote equality by making sure that we all equally can't read any of these damn spoilers. Much logic, such wow. So anyway, this is a 3-cost elf, creature, shaman, whatever. When Reclaiming Mage enters the battlefield, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. So if you run an elf tribal, first of all, shame on you, and secondly, why would you ever run naturalize instead of this? Next up we got Massacre dos Seca Olho, which I believe translates to the Tiananmen Square Massacre in 1989 by Chinese viewers. Oh wait, I mistranslated that. I Blight Massacre. Come back, Chinese viewers. Anyway, this is a pretty cool card. I remember this one. It's a 4-cost double black sorcery, and all non-elf creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. So it's one of the few sweepers that if you're running the right deck does not affect you. Now it's still an elf tribal card, so I hate it, but it was at least neat. I preferred, Virulent Plague, where it's just all tokens get -2/-2 until the end of game, basically, or at least while the enchantment's in play. I played that against so many goblin decks, and they were just screwed. They couldn't do anything. It was so funny. Next up, we've got Invocador do Coração Selvagem. Why Portuguese gotta be so hard, man? It's Wildheart Invoker. It's a 4-cost creature elf shaman, because of course it is. And you pay 8, target creature gets +5/+5 and gains trample until end of turn. Probably should have translated that to garbage filler elf. Next up, another one of the more annoying famous elves. It's Elvish Visionary. You drop it in, it's an elf, it costs 2, and then you draw a card, which is probably another elf. Fantastic. Well, the next one, you don't need to know Portuguese to know that this is Abomination of Llanowar. So it's a 3-cost star legendary creature elf horror, and it's vigilance and menace, which is always fun, and then Abomination of Llanowar's power and toughness is equal to the number of elves you control, plus the number of elves in your graveyard. Pretty bonkers ass overpowered card. I mean, vigilance plus menace plus it's going to be a 15/15. I mean, that's nuts. Next up, what is this, the All Elves Day? Elvish Dreadlord. It's a 5-cost 3/3 zombie elf with death touch. Why do they even bother with a creature this big and expensive? And when it dies, non-elf creatures get -3/-3 until end of turn. Encore 7. Wow, this is like the biggest elf grenade ever. And by elf grenade, I mean a grenade that only harms non-elves. That's in line with their lore. Typically, the elves on most planes are racist as all hell. Next up, we got Fathis, Shadowcat Familiar. Commanders you control have menace and death touch, and then partner. So, I mean, this would be your commander, theoretically, so it would grant the abilities to itself. It's a good way to have the constant threat of commander damage finishing the game. And then if they do decide to throw something your way, it's got to be 2 at a time, and you've got death touch on both of them. So this is actually like a really decent card. Next up, Necrotic Hex. It's a 7-cost black sorcery, and each player sacrifices 6 creatures. You create 6 tapped 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. Boy, this is awfully reminiscent of the card Pox, which is from Ice Age in 5th edition, and then they kind of remade it as Smallpox. Unsurprisingly, a lesser edition of this. So each player, including you, sacrifices 6 creatures. Then you create 6 tapped 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, no matter how successful the spell was. I mean, it had to resolve, but I mean, however many you killed is irrelevant to the number you create, which is actually kind of nice. But hey, Pox, if you're not familiar, is each player loses 1/3 of his or her life, then discards 1/3 of the cards in their hand, and then sacrifices 1/3 of the creatures he or she controls, then sacrifices 1/3 of the lands he or she controls. Round up each time, because we're twisting the knife. And also, it's 3 black. That's it. That's the whole cost of the spell, just triple black, because this is the blackest damn spell I've ever seen. So kind of neat in both cases, but yeah, Pox isn't, as far as we know, in this set. Next up, we got Nightshade Harvester. It's a 4-cost 2/2 Elf Shaman. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, that player loses 1 life. So I love that reverse landfall. That's actually, they should do that for a thing. Then put a 1/1 counter on Nightshade Harvester. Ooh, double reverse landfall. Now we're talking. Next up, oh good, it's one of the trolliest flicker monkeys I've ever seen. And remember, flicker is a minor mechanic in this set. It's Meteor Golem whenever it enters the battlefield. And then they forgot to put, if it was cast from hand, destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. So we've all gotten this with, what is it, Thassa? And just boom, 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 boom. Just goodbye, there goes all your permanents. 1 per turn for 0 mana. Thanks for that, appreciate it. Next up, Golem Artisan. It's a 5-cost 3/3, and if you pay 2, target artifact creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn, which is terribly weak. And if you pay 2, target artifact creature gains your choice of flying, trample, or haste until end of turn. Now we're talking. So, I mean, if you have a monstrous amount of mana, you could do something with this, but it's basically 50% fire breathing, which is honestly a more fair fire breathing, because fire breathing's kind of OP. But I guess this is an okay card in the right deck, you know, if you got nothing better to do with that mana. Next up, ooh, Mox Diamond. That's a bold include. Just kidding, it's Moss Diamond. It's like a third-rate mana rock. It's just there for draft. Next up, it's Iktekik Selvage Splicer. I don't know how to pronounce that. So he's a legendary with partner, 4-cost 1/1, so just honk honk value town, next stop. And when he enters the battlefield, create a 3/3 colorless golem, which used to be a big thing in certain sets. And whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, so that's any artifact token, creature, anything, put a 1/1 counter on this creature, and then a 1/1 counter on each golem you control. So this is that specific card you've been waiting for your green-oriented hybrid colorless golem tribal deck. We've all got a friend that would build that. Next up, Nevin Ryle's Disc. Oh, I hate this card and so do you. So this Trolley Frisbee from Hell is a 4-cost artifact. It enters battlefield tapped, and then if you pay 1 and tap it, destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. If you can somehow make this indestructible, it will survive its own effect. So this thing is just one giant bundle of glass cannon combo trolley lockdown prison deck trash. I hate it, you hate it, let's move on. Oh look, it's Nevin Ryle, fantastic. So once again, as Mark Rosewater teased, this is the first time we've seen him on a card. And looking at the card, yeah, he looks about as evil and about as much of a troll as I would suspect, just looking at his wonderful invention. So it's a 6-cost triple-colored 3/6 zombie wizard and hexproof from artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. Which, I mean, that's neat. You know, it's partial hexproof. You guys know I like the half-measure mechanics. They're a lot more fair, and honestly, this guy's going to get nailed by an instant or sorcery, let's be honest. So he also has, when he enters battlefield, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token for each creature that died this turn. So a little backup insurance policy mass necro effect there. And when he dies, you may pay 1 generic. When you do, destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments, because of course he had to do that. So overall, I mean, kind of a neat card, not the most dynamic, amazing thing ever. If you make him your commander, they're going to see that little zombie ambush coming. I guess the theory is you controlled when everything gets blown up, you know, especially with his own ability or his dumb disc, and then you time out when the zombies show up or whatever. I mean, for 6 mana, it's an interesting trick. You might get a lot of value out of it, but if that many creatures were in play, the board state was in danger long before you ever thought about getting him out to do something about it. So, I don't know, and the triple colors is a big turnoff. That color combination is a big turnoff. Ask any Magic player in any format ever, so yeah, I don't know, kind of another disappointment, just like Urborg. Which, yes, I misread. I recorded that video at like 1 in the morning. So next up, we got Flood of Recollection. It's a 2-cost sorcery, obviously a reprint for Mixland. And return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, and then exile this card, because if you were able to do this in a loop, that would be bullshit. I'd almost rather put some more power into it and have the Gear Hulk do it, but I mean, for 2, you know, hey, you could go get something pretty good. Aetherize, Aether Spouts, you know, something really mean. Settle the Wreckage. Yeah, we're just talking about my deck at this point. Next up, Austere Command. If it looks familiar, well, it's from Lorwyn, but also it's from Iconic Masters and Double Masters, so now they're reprinting it again, even though it's only $3. Okay, so it's a 6-cost sorcery. Choose 2 of the 4 following modes: destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all permanents named Nevinryle, just kidding, destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, or destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 4 or greater. So you could just choose the bottom 2 and have it be a true board wipe. Otherwise, you duck under it or you go over it. Or you just wreck your opponent's stupid artifact affinity deck, which if they're playing that, yes, blow them all up. So kind of a cool flexible card. It's a shame it costs 6, but it kind of has to for that level of power. What kind of bugs me is you have to choose exactly 2, not up to 2. So you might get stuck blowing up something you didn't actually want to blow up. That's why I never did fully like this card. My current deck doesn't run it. Next up, Kendern. What? Somehow that jumble of nonsense translates to Spark Harvest. I'll take your word for it, Germany. I know how much you love smashing words together because it's fun. And it is. So you guys know what this does. It's 1-cost black sorcery. It was just printed. And as an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature or pay an additional 4 black, or 4 mana, including 1 black, destroy target creature or planeswalker. So it's just like a souped up version of that one other black spell, but this one includes planeswalkers, so a pretty good card. Next up, it's Flamekin Herald, which is apparently Flamekin Herald. Okay. So it's a 3-cost creature elemental wizard, and commander spells you control have Cascade. Now this isn't legendary, doesn't have partner, can't be your commander, but I mean, you get this out. Oh boy. I'm not 100% sure on the rules, but I think that if you pay like 10 to bring out your 4-cost commander because it died a bunch of times, you would then cascade based on that CMC. I think it's the CMC of the spell, not the card, when, like, at the time that it is put on the stack. But then there's, like, alternate or additional costs that don't traditionally count towards that, but my feeling is it would work that way. So you could get some serious cascading going. So next up, Jury, Master of the Revere. It's a 2-cost, clearly Rakdos character, legendary creature, human shaman, and whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a 1/1 counter on Jury. And then when Jury dies, it deals damage to any target equal to its power. That is the most Rakdos card I've ever seen in my life. Next up, Deranged Assistant. Yeah, we've all been there. It's a 2-cost 1/1, human wizard, tap him, mill a card, and then add 1 generic mana to your mana pool. Let me just remind everybody, because after they named this, it's kind of misleading. You mill the card, not your opponent. You're the one milling it. I mean, you hear mill, the first thing that comes to your mind is milling somebody out. That's the traditional use of mill, but then you got to remember, it says target player mills for any time you would use it in the normal sense, and then just by itself, it means you, which, I mean, it feels like it should be the other way around, but then if you think about the language, it shouldn't be. It's just unusual and misleading. So next up, Crow of Dark Tidings. I do believe I've heard of that one before. It's a 3-cost 2/1 flying zombie bird, and when it enters the battlefield or dies, you mill 2 cards. I feel like the target should be specified by rule with this new keyword. Actually, I think it's not a keyword because it's not in its own line. It's now just like a game rule word, which kind of makes sense about why they did that way then. So next up, Ghastly Demise. It's a 1-cost black instant. Destroy target non-black creature if its toughness is less than or equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. Boy, we might have a candidate for the most unreliable commander card ever. 100 cards, 40 life. You think maybe your graveyard might get a little bigger than the average game? They just threw it in there to make it look like Tormod's Crypt is doing something. Anyway, Around Me or something like that of the Dead Tide. So this is a Merfolk Wizard, legendary, no partner though. 3-cost 1/4, so kind of nice defensive posturing there. And if you tap it, exile cards from your graveyard equal to the number of opponents you have, and then target creature card in your graveyard gains Encore until the end of turn. So you have to be able to exile enough to still have a valid target. And obviously it says the Encore cost is equal to its mana cost, because, you know, that's usually how that's determined, but they did need to actually spell it out. So it's just a free Whip of Erebos effect without the lifelink. So, you know, cool. Next up, ooh, Mythic Equipment. It's Commanderous Plate. Looks like this is a brand new card, so this should be pretty tasty. It's a 1-drop, hello. Equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has protection from each color that's not in your commander's color identity. So just absolute random benefit or dead ass effect based on who you just happen to get matched up against, which they said they're done printing stuff like that, but we all knew that was a lie. And then you can equip it for 5 on a normal creature, or you can equip it to your commander for 3, which is basically similar to how the Black Blade works, which is also in the set, by the way. So this could be good, it could not. I mean, it's an enabler to get potentially some commander damage in, because if they can't physically block you and nothing in their deck can interact with you, well, they just lose, which kind of sounds terrible, so I kind of hate this card. Next up, Sifter Worm. It's a 7-cost 7/7, and it has Trample, and when it enters battlefield, scry 3, then reveal the top card of your library. You gain life equal to that card's converted mana cost. So you can try to arrange that and gain a monstrous amount of life. There's another card really similar to this, by the way. But if you don't care about life, or you care a lot more about, oh, out of these 3 cards, I really want this one up next, and, don't want to send it to the bottom of my library, this is just a good recurring scry effect. I mean, yeah, it costs 7, but, in green and in commander, that's basically like costing 4. So not too bad of a card there. Also, I mean, you can do some damage with this. It's a 7/7 Trampler. Next up, Faith's Fetters. How this is a commander grade spell is beyond me. I guess it's just for draft. It's just a pin down effect that costs 1 too much and then you gain 4 life. Oh boy. Next up, Lathiel, the Bounteous Dawn. Oh boy, how majestic. It's a unicorn, so get your unicorn tribal out. 2/2 with lifelink, cool. And at the beginning of each end step, if you gained life this turn, distribute up to that many 1/1 counters among any number of other target creatures. So this is Sunbond on steroids. I don't know what kind of lunatics put this on pre-order for 99 cents, but this is, in the right deck, one of the most powerful commanders I have ever seen. This is like weaponized life gain incarnate right here. In like a white heavy, but maybe green ramp, green life gain, green counter dump deck, maybe proliferate, maybe hybrid landfall, maybe enchantment heavy, you can go a lot of routes with that. If it's primarily a life gain deck, you got like Heliod and stuff in there and the staff, oh my gosh, this is just outrageous. Your creatures will be unimaginably huge. So yeah, unbelievable new card here. Next up, Tana, the Bloodsower. It's a 4-cost 2/2 legendary creature elf druid. It's a mythic, oh boy, with trample, ooh, watch out. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green sapling creature tokens. So this is just asking to get boosted. Still kind of specific, though. I mean, it would be weird if you made this your soul commander, which is why they put partner on it. And that is the last one for today. So a lot of interesting cards, some of my favorites, a lot of cards modeled after some of my favorites, and a couple really broken, obnoxious ones that'll kind of take all the fun out of the game. So thanks, appreciate it, Wizards. Thanks to all of you for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.